Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see you here. It really is. Mm. From talking to different people in groups and interviews, there's that common theme of enjoyment in the retreat. Monica expresses this, and so does Krista and myself, how grateful we are for this opportunity. This has been a long time coming. And it's so nice to see everyone here. When we first set up the retreat, I thought, oh, maybe we might get 2 or 3 people coming. And yeah, just so grateful. There was a delay with the recordings in the recordings of the different talks, the meta talk and the Dhamma talks and so on, in the processing in Zoom, but it suddenly woke up. And this morning, in my time, it suddenly processed everything at once. And so they all appeared. So I've been busy working in the background, uploading 6 new recordings. So all those recordings are now on YouTube. And also, of course, you can find them through the MIDL website in the library drop-down menu, Retreat Library. You'll see all the talks there and also the Qigong's there. Yeah, Monica's meta groups have been really nice and they come out really good too. So that's really nice. So check that out. Wonderful. I like to be thorough, and we're going to continue with the Dhamma Chakkapavantana Sutta, setting the wheel of Dharma in motion. In the first night in Australia, it's nighttime here. In the first night, we looked at the Buddha was talking to 5 ascetics and he introduced the middle way. So we looked at that section of the sutta, what that means, what that looks like. And then last night, we looked at the aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path and how the Noble Eightfold Path isn't only an idea or a concept, but it's actually something that can be experienced. If you really pay attention, you'll start to notice that you can observe the Noble Eightfold Path happening within your mind. Be it your mind inclining towards panya, wisdom, be it inclining towards sila, morality, or be it inclining towards samadhi for calm, clarity. Yeah. And as a meditator's mind starts to mature, then you find that you start to get 2 groups coming up. You might have panya inclining towards sila, so wisdom inclining towards morality, developing harmony. You might have the sila, leading towards the calm and developing samadhi. You might have the clarity of the samadhi leaning towards vipassana insight into the characteristics and so on. At full maturity, and I'm just speaking from my own experience here, all 3 parts of the Noble Eightfold Path, or all 3 groups and all the path factors are present in the meditator's mind. And that's something I'm looking out for. Yeah. And also, when these are all present, so are the 7 awakening factors. They're also present within the meditator's mind. Okay. So let's begin in this sutta. We're going to be continuing. So we looked at the first part of the sutta, and now we're going to look into the second part. So we have the Noble Eightfold Path, and then the Buddha went on to say, I teach the noble truth of dukkha and the path leading to the cessation of dukkha. So, of course, the path leading to cessation of dukkha is the Noble Eightfold Path. And last night we described what dukkha was, how it's experienced. Dukkha arises within the gap between what we think should be happening now and what is actually happening now. There's actually a dukkha gap and an expectation gap there. If we soften, relax, close that gap, then the dukkha fades and becomes weaker. Yeah. Now, this bhikkhus is the noble truth of dukkha. Birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, death is dukkha, sorrow, lamentation, pain, and distress and despair are dukkha. Association with the unloved is dukkha. Separation from the loved is dukkha. Not getting what one wants is dukkha. I think that's our most common one there, isn't it? In short, the five aggregates affected by clinging are dukkha. And these are the five aggregates of form, feeling, perception, formations, and awareness. And it's important to note that the five aggregates are dukkha, the five aggregates when they're affected by clinging. When there's clinging associated with those aggregates, then there's dukkha. And this bhikkhus is a noble truth, the origination of dukkha. It is this very craving that seeks passion and delight, now here, now there. Craving for sensual pleasure, craving for existence, craving for non-existence. And this bhikkhus is the noble truth of the cessation of dukkha. It is the complete fading and cessation, abandonment, relinquishment, release of that very craving. And this bhikkhus is the noble truth of the path that leads to cessation of dukkha. It is this very noble eightfold path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right effort, right mindfulness, right unification. Yeah. So now the Buddha has very clearly said that the fourth noble truth, the path that leads to the ending of dukkha is the Noble Eightfold Path. So that shows how important the Noble Eightfold Path is to the practice and how important it is to cultivate that path. Not just as an idea in your head, but as something that develops, something that can be developed, something can be cultivated. Mm. What I'd like to look at tonight is the Noble Eightfold Path, but What I'd like to look at tonight is the Four Noble Truths, but in a slightly different way. And those of you that have been in the Sutta classes will be familiar with this way. When we're looking at the Four Noble Truths, they're very simple. Dukkha, arising of dukkha, ceasing of dukkha, and path leading to the cessation of dukkha. So when we're looking at that, the Four Noble Truths, we can see a formula there. And the formula for the Four Noble Truths, if we break it down and we remove dukkha from there, the first noble truth is being able to recognize the presence or absence of dukkha. So what does it feel like, or can you notice what it feels like to be free of dukkha? What does it feel like when dukkha isn't present within you? And what does it feel like when dukkha is present? Now, it's really easy to notice when something is present within us, but we tend to forget to check when it's not. Yeah? So presence, absence. So the first noble truth of dukkha is getting to recognize dukkha. And the way to recognize dukkha is to recognize both its presence and its absence. So when we're looking in MIDL, when we develop the practice of softening, and we develop that grounding of awareness in our body, we start to develop that, and it moves along the path of samatha, relaxation, calm, tranquility, and so on. What we're doing is we're learning to become intimate with, to recognize absence. Yeah. The importance of samatha can't be understated. Samatha allows you to see the absence of dukkha, even if for a very short time. The deeper the samatha, the greater the absence of dukkha. Yeah. What Vipassana insight allows us to see is when dukkha arises out of that samatha, when the disturbances come up and the fights and struggles that we get in. We can see that dukkha gap being created, that gap in expectation towards what's actually happening now and what we think should be happening now. A misalignment of the perception of our mind with reality. Yeah. Perhaps you've noticed that in yourself once or twice throughout your life when reality doesn't meet your expectations. Yeah, that dukkha gap. The next noble truth is arising of dukkha. Now we're coming into the territory of idappaccayata, specific conditionality, and I mentioned that the other night. So specific conditionality means that everything arises due to conditions outside of itself, and everything ceases due to conditions outside of itself. This is a deeper understanding that leads to the understanding of karma. Yeah, really important understanding. So nothing is independently arisen or independently existing. So as human beings, we like to believe that we are independent of this planet, and as if this planet goes, we can just go and find another planet to live on. That's what we believe. But we are intimately linked with this planet. I don't know about you, but my body was formed from this planet from when I was conceived. The elements of these planets were consumed. This planet was consumed by my mother. Yeah. And those elements gradually built my body. And ever since then, from when I was born, I started consuming this planet, eating this planet, and eating beings on this planet, and eating plants on this planet. And the elements have gradually grown this beautiful body that I have today. Yeah. And now I'm going through a process, now that I'm 59, I'm going through a process where the elements of my body are starting to go back into the planet, into Earth again. Yeah, things are starting to miss. Apparently the DNA is going. It's very much like taking a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. That's what's happening. Yeah. From when we're about 25, we start taking photocopies of photocopies and the DNA, everything's breaking down. We start to lose our hair. Yeah. We start to decay. Our skin, as you get older, it doesn't return when you stretch it. Oh, you know that one, do you, Dad? Yeah, so it's going back into the planet. It's going to be recycled into another being. I depend on the oxygen from this planet. I depend on the carbon dioxide. Yeah, I depend on so many things from this planet. The conditions on this planet change, this body's gone. It's just simple. It's not independent. Nothing is independent. Yeah, this is really important to understand. So when we're looking at the second noble truth, arising of dukkha, what we're talking about is, can you recognize the conditions, the specific conditions for dukkha to arise? So we observe presence, absence. Okay, my query, my curiosity, my practice, my curiosity for the day is, what are the conditions for dukkha to arise? I need to understand that. What are the conditions? The third noble truth is the same. It's tied into idappaccayata. What are the conditions for dukkha to cease? Can you understand? Can you see for yourself, even if it's just a glimpse? Can you see? Can you understand? If you understand the conditions for dukkha to cease, then apply the conditions for dukkha to cease. Don't muck around, just do it. Yeah, this isn't a game, though it's fun, but it's not a game. Yeah, we can still have fun. Yeah, there's a formula there. Recognition, presence, absence. What are the conditions for dukkha to arise? What are the conditions for dukkha to cease? Apply the conditions for dukkha to cease. And the Buddha said the conditions for the dukkha to cease is the Noble Eightfold Path. So dukkha is quite complex, isn't it? We take a look at that. Mm. Yeah, Patrick Carney said that in one of his old Dhamma talks. I used to have his old Dharma talks and listen to them, and a lot of them were on cassette tapes. Amongst a lot of other teachers that taught at BMIMC had a copy of all these talks, and they decayed. They went back into the earth to become something else. So I went to play them, and it's like the tape just didn't work anymore. Anyway, they're all gone. Everything just goes eventually, doesn't it? Yeah, so he said that this formula in India was the way that a doctor would diagnose an illness. So, what is the illness? Can you recognize when the illness is present or absent? If it's present, what is the conditions for the illness to arise? What are the conditions for the illness to cease? Apply the treatment that changes the conditions for that illness so it ceases. Yeah. So antibiotics aren't killing the bacteria as such. I don't think they are. They're changing the conditions for them to live. It's about altering conditions. Everything's about altering conditions. That's what we're doing in our practice. Yeah. Now, I said I wanted to look at something really interesting. So we have that. Now, if we remove dukkha, what if we did this? First step, first noble truth, presence, absence. What are the conditions for X to arise? What are the conditions for X to cease? If I want X to grow, then I apply the conditions for X to grow. If I want X to cease, I apply the conditions for X to cease. So I apply that insight into specific conditionality to X to make it do what I want it to do. Now you're probably going, well, where's a pseudo reference to this? And it was kind of like I'm practicing and I'm seeing this and I'm going, well, this is very familiar. And then looking at the sutras and it's like, oh, okay, there it is. Okay, so let's look at a reference here. In the Sutta class we've been studying, we just finished the Samaditi Sutta, which is the discourse on right view. Okay, and this is a discourse where one of the Buddha's main disciples, Sariputta, is actually talking to a group of bhikkhus, a group of monks, and they're questioning him about right view, and they're saying, hey, how do I reach right view? So Samaditi Sutta, it's in Majjhima Nikaya number 9. This is how I heard it. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in the Jeddas Grove at Enapatindika Park. Forgive me for my translation there. There, the Venerable Sariputta addressed the bhikkhus thus: friends, bhikkhus. Friend, they replied. The Venerable Sariputta said thus: in what way is a noble disciple one of right view? His view is straight, who has perfect confidence in the Dhamma and has arrived at the true Dhamma. Indeed, friend, so the bhikkhu said, indeed, friend, we would come from far away to learn the meaning of this statement from the Venerable Sariputta. It would be good if the Venerable Sariputta would explain the meaning of this statement. Having heard it from him, we'll remember it. So I expect you guys to remember everything that I say. And look, everyone's coming from far away to hear this. That's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So I've actually cut segments out of this sutta here because there's a lot to it, but it's really interesting. I want you to see if you can notice something here. When friends, a noble disciple understands dukkha, the origin of dukkha, the cessation of dukkha, and the way leading to cessation of dukkha, in that way they are one of right view and have arrived at the true Dhamma. Does anyone recognize that? Do you recognize it? Have we heard that before? Anyone? Yeah, you might have recognized that. Yeah, the Four Noble Truths, of course. We've just been talking about it for a while now. Let's go on. And then they ask, is there another way of developing right view? Because apparently there's lots of ways of developing right view. And so Sariputta said, yes, there is, friends. There is another way of developing right view. When friends, a noble disciple understands the akusala, so the unwholesome, the unskillful, and the root of the akusala, the wholesome, which is kusala, and the root of the kusala. In that way, they are one of right view. His view is straight, who is perfect confidence in the Dhamma and has arrived at the true Dhamma. And that understanding of the akusala and the kusala, the unwholesome, unskillful, and the wholesome, skillful, is a very intricate part of MIDL. You may have noticed. That's something we look at very closely and very clearly. Kusala, akusala. Really understand it. So there's two ways of coming to right view. Now, did anyone notice anything about that? When friends, a noble disciple understands the akusala, the root of the akusala, the kusala and the root of the kusala, in that way, okay. So they understand the root of the kusala and they understand what causes it, what brings it, what causes it to rise, yeah? When friends, a noble disciple understands clinging, the origin of clinging, the cessation of clinging, and the way leading to the cessation of clinging, in that way they are one of right view and arrived at the true Dharma. Now, when we go from the kusala and the akusala and we go to clinging, we see something very clear and something very interesting. What we see is when friends, a noble disciple understands clinging. So, first noble truth, we replace X with clinging. We remove dukkha and we put clinging as X. Yeah? You've got that so far? The origin of clinging. So we take the second noble truth, we remove dukkha, and we put clinging in its place. So can you recognize the presence, absence of clinging? Can you notice the conditions for clinging to arise? Yeah. And then he goes on to say, the cessation of clinging. Can you notice the conditions for clinging to cease? And the way leading to cessation of clinging. The fourth noble truth, we replace dukkha with clinging. You notice what Sariputta's done? The Four Noble Truths is a formula for insight into specific conditionality in a way that either leads something to come to an end, or later on we're going to see that actually leads to something arising. It's this same formula. Let's see if we can see it here. When friends, a noble disciple understands craving, the origin of craving, the cessation of craving, and the way leading to cessation of craving, in that way they are one of right view. See, he's removed dukkha and he's put craving in the Four Noble Truths. When friends, a noble disciple understands Vedana, the origin of Vedana, the cessation of Vedana, and the way leading to cessation of Vedana, in that way they are one of right view and have arrived at the true Dhamma. Now we've got Vedana there. You're starting to see a pattern. Can you see that formula? Am I making this clear? So X, the Four Noble Truths is a formula that we can put anything in place of X. Anything. Yeah? And so what we do is we recognize the presence and or absence of X. Then we try to notice in our practice, okay, here it is. What are the conditions for X to arise? What are the conditions for X to cease? In the case of the craving and the clinging and the Vedana, we apply the conditions for it to cease. If we go to another sutta, don't worry, this is leading somewhere. Actually, in that sutta there, in the Samaditi Sutta, he goes 16 different variations of that use of that formula. He puts 16 different things in the Four Noble Truth formula. So it shows us here by looking at this that the Four Noble Truths is more than just the Four Noble Truths. It's actually a formula. It's the formula that's important. It's the formula that's important. It's not just about dukkha. We can put anything in that formula as insight meditators, anything. And if we do, then we actually develop insight into iddhipaccayata, specific conditionality. If we go to a famous sutta, the Satipatthana Sutta, the Maha Satipatthana Sutta is the same, the Satipatthana Sutta. If we go to the mindfulness of Dhamma sections, you can also see it in the mindfulness of feeling and mind section, but the Buddha doesn't use the same formula. Now, this is not Sariputta doing this. This is the Buddha doing this. This is important. The Buddha's playing with that formula too. I mightn't be right here, but just let's see what's going on here. So the first in mindfulness of dharmas is the 5 hindrances. When sensual desire is present within them, the meditator knows there is sensual desire present within me, presence, absence. When there is no sensual desire present within them, the meditator knows there is no sensual desire present within me. See that first noble truth? Presence, absence. They also understand how the arising of unarisen sensual desire comes to be and how to abandon sensual desire once it has arisen. They also understand the conditions for the non-arising of sensual desire once it has arisen. And this goes the same for the 5 hindrances, for aversion, for restlessness, for dullness, and for doubt. Everybody loves doubt. And doubt, it's just one of the hindrances, guys. It's not that important. It's not that special. But you put doubt in it. You replace X with doubt. What are the conditions for doubt? Can you recognize doubt? Don't believe it. Don't buy in the stories. It's just not true. What are the conditions for doubt to arise? What are the conditions for doubt to cease? Apply the conditions for doubt to cease, please. Do that. Don't keep applying the conditions for doubt to arise. You're not understanding the Four Noble Truths properly. 5 clung to aggregates, or the 5 aggregates that are clung to. The meditator knows this is form, this is its arising, this is its cessation, this is feeling, this is its arising. It goes through the same. See? It's using those first 3 noble truths. 6 internal and external sense bases. The meditator knows the mind, knows mental forms, and understands the attachment arises dependent on both. They know how the arising of unarisen attachment comes to be and how to abandon attachment once it has arisen. They also understand the conditions for the non-arising of attachment once it has been abandoned. So this is the Buddha playing the same game with the Four Noble Truth formula as Sariputta did in the Samaditi Sutta. Isn't that, do you get as excited about this stuff as I do? I always thought it was just dukkha. It's just everything's dukkha, everything's horrible. Oh, it's all about dukkha and suffering. No, it's actually about a formula. We understand dukkha. It's one of the many things that we can understand, one of the many things we can develop insight into. Sariputta said right view is developed by 16 different things, by just developing insight into 16 different things. So there's different paths available for different people. It just depends on your tendency. What's arising in your practice? Where is your mind inclining to? It's not one size fits all. We have the same formula that's universal, but what we're developing insight could be different for everyone. Personally, I absolutely love Vedana. I love developing insight into Vedana. Yeah. But maybe something else might be what you notice, what you're sensitive to. Now, this one's really, really interesting. Let's see if this works. The 7 awakening factors in the Satipatthana Sutta. Because when I first read these before, I never even noticed that there was a formula in there, a repeated formula. 7 awakening factors. When mindfulness as an awakening factor is present within them, they know mindfulness as an awakening factor is present within me. When mindfulness as an awakening factor is not present within them, they know there is no mindfulness as awakening factor present within me. Yeah. So this is for the 7 factors, the same for curiosity, balanced effort, joy, tranquility, unification, and equanimity. Yeah, we can change that out. He goes through all of them like that. They know how the arising of unarisen mindfulness as awakening factor comes to be, and how once arisen, mindfulness as awakening factor reaches maturity through cultivation. We got something wholesome, kusala here. All the other stuff was akusala. Suddenly the Buddha is using that same formula for kusala. So how would that work? Recognition, so we have it. Recognize the presence or absence of X. So let's put mindfulness in there. Is mindfulness present within me now? What does it feel like to be mindful? Is mindfulness absent in me now? What does it feel like for mindfulness to be absent? You can do the same for curiosity. Is curiosity present within you now? Or is it absent in you now? Do you notice the difference in experiences between those? Can you recognize when balanced effort is present or absent? Or when joy is present or absent? Or tranquility? Or unification? The samadhi aspect? Or equanimity and so on? Yeah? Okay, so we put mindfulness in there, presence, absence. What are the conditions for mindfulness to arise? Do you know, or do you just try to be mindful? You can't try to be mindful. Specific conditionality, idappaccayata, you have to create the conditions for mindfulness to arise. When mindfulness lapses, when it collapses, when you get lost in the deluded mind, it's because the conditions have changed. And we don't notice them. The conditions have changed. Yeah? Specific conditionality. What are the conditions for mindfulness to arise? What are the conditions for mindfulness to cease? If you understand that conditionality, you go to the fourth noble truth, you apply the conditions for mindfulness to arise and establish as your natural way of being. Yeah? So you can put any kusala state. You could, in Monica, in your metta class, you could put loving kindness as X. You could put karuna, you can put compassion as X. X. Can you notice when compassion is present or absent? What are the conditions for compassion to arise? What are the conditions for compassion to cease? Apply the conditions for compassion to arise and establish. And the reason I said establish, remember that abandon, guard, cultivate, establish from the previous talk. Yeah, cultivate, establish. Cultivate the kusala, the wholesome, skillful, and establish them as your natural way of being. The Buddha said it was more than removing the hindrances. It's more than removing the dukkha. You also have to cultivate and establish the kusala states. Why? Because they combine, they bring together, they unify. Without them, we're just dry, we become distant, we become indifferent. It's the love, it's the kindness, it's the caring, it's the gratitude, it's the generosity that binds societies, binds families, binds us to ourselves, not binded in a bad way, but connects us together, connects the heart. It's also those qualities that connect us to the animals on this planet, to the plants, to the planet itself, with gratitude. Not as something to consume, but something to be custodians of. So Linda and I we just can't even believe we're here, but we're fortunate we have this beautiful home, beautiful part of the world. Yeah. Legally, we own it. Legally, we own this land. But in reality, we're custodians. We're borrowing this house. We're borrowing these possessions. We're borrowing this land. And one day another family will be here. And if human beings are no longer on this planet, then other animals will come and they'll be the custodians of this land, of this house, of these items in here. None of it do we actually really own. It's all transient, just like we are. Yeah. So we look after things. If we get things and we make them last. Yeah. I'll make this shirt last. You'll start to see holes appear. I've already got holes in my pants. My old Tai Chi stuff, Tai Chi clothes, they'll wear out. Things wear out. But make them last as long as we possibly can. Yeah. Look after things gently, close doors gently, use things gently, respectfully, understanding it has an impact. Yeah. Understanding specific conditionality. Wonderful. So we can see that formula of the Four Noble Truths. Look at the Four Noble Truths. Can you look at it in a different way now? Can you perhaps see it as a lot more flexible, a lot more opening, like a lot more promising? Both Sariputta and the Buddha are talking about the Four Noble Truths in a different way. Not just focusing on dukkha, but as a formula to liberation. You can decide what you put in X. So for the next 24 hours of your practice, take this formula and play with putting different things in X. Be really curious about what the conditions for things to arise. I want to hear this in the interviews. What are the conditions for things to cease? Yeah. And then see if you can apply the conditions and see what happens. Not trying to do something with the thing, but creating the conditions around it that support it. Yeah. So you can do this to both kusala, wholesome, skillful qualities, or akusala, unwholesome, unskillful qualities. And when MIDL developed, I wouldn't say I designed it. It kind of developed itself and I just watched it happen. Yeah. It wasn't something I developed. It's something that's already there. When you look at softening, what are you doing when you're softening? Are you trying to make something go away? No. What you're doing is you're changing the conditions that support things. When you soften, relax, let go with clear comprehension, you're changing the conditions that support the akusala, the unwholesome, the unskillful. And the very act of softening is kind, it's caring, it's aligned with sila, with morality. It leads towards harmony. So it's also changing those conditions, converting them like alchemy into the conditions for the kusala, the wholesomeness, the skillfulness to arise. That's what you're doing with Kos. That's what you're doing by very consciously and very clearly softening, relaxing, letting go. Not out of aversion, out of the understanding of Yatapachiyata. Yeah? Changing conditions by relaxing, by letting go, with clear comprehension. Wonderful. So I'll just open the talk up now to any questions you may have about your practice or maybe about that Dhamma talk. I actually kept within time today. Who would have thought? Might have to put on some glasses if I'm going to see names. Has anyone got any questions or anything they'd like to share? I can see you're raring to ask a question, Paula, or to share something. Ah, there we go. Look at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm also so grateful for this time together. Thank you. My question is, when I get to say mindfulness of breathing, like length of the breath, hold of the breath, natural breath, I find there's a possibility of doing two things. Like I'm calm enough that I can just continue relaxing into the whole body. But then I also catch things that could be opportunities for insight. Like I could do, the conditions, what you just mentioned. What do you recommend? Or does it
Okay.
depend on each time?
Okay. So I'll speak in terms of MIDL. Yeah. We need to be really clear about what we're doing on our retreat. On the retreat, your samadhi is going to become stronger. So gradually your mind is going to incline more and more towards samatha, especially the way that we structure attention with peripheral awareness of the body, that background awareness of the body. Samatha is going to become stronger and the hindrances are going to become weaker. So when we begin the retreat, we'll have more hindrances. As it goes on, we'll have less hindrances and more samatha. The general rule is if something pulls your attention or is present, but it's not sticky, it means you don't get stuck or lost in it, then just soften, relax, let it go, and come back to your samatha object. If something pulls your attention, yeah, grabs it, but it's sticky, it's like your mind keeps going back to it again and again, it kind of gets stuck in it, then pull it apart into pieces so you actually break it. Pull it apart into kaya, the elemental qualities in the body. How do I experience that? Then pull it apart in terms of Vedana. The elemental qualities will reveal the Vedana. Then pull it apart in regards to Chitta, looking at the relationship of your mind towards it. Then soften, relax, let it go. Yeah. So break it up, but only if it's sticky. And things will get less sticky as the retreat goes on. Yeah. Until we get into deeper practice, then it'll get sticky again. Yeah. Now, in regards to what we're doing in mindfulness of breathing is developing the 7 awakening factors. We just happen to be developing insight into anicca, dukkha, and anatta, and in MIDL, particularly anatta, on the way. It's like we're going for a walk in the forest, but we're also collecting flowers along the way, or also taking photos along the way or something. But our main thing is that journey through the forest rather than all the things on the side. But if something draws our attention, we can go and have a look and play around with that. But when we can let that go, then we continue on our journey. It's the 7 awakening factors: mindfulness, aroused mindfulness, presence, absence, curiosity, presence, absence, balanced effort. What does that even mean? The middle way. Joy, so piti sukha, the joy, the happiness, the contentment of relaxing and letting go, of releasing, of giving up. Yeah. I think it was using some of those words in there of relinquishing, releasing. You'll hear dispassion, disenchantment. They're all letting goes. Yeah. That's where they lead to. Yeah. So it's going through and recognize and building those. You want to get to equanimity. You want to have equanimity in your mind and the other 6 awakening factors in your mind as well. This is part of the conditions for Nibbanic insight. The Noble Eightfold Path is cultivating this, but you've got that. The 7 awakening factors. Get them really strong. There's a stained glass window behind here that you might have noticed sometimes on the retreat. And there it is there, and you can hardly see it. The outside frame is the Noble Eightfold Path. The inside ring is the 5 indriya. So the first one of that is saddha, faith, confidence. That's one of the factors as well for awakening. Yeah. And then the very middle petals of the flower, the lotus in the middle, or it's a flower in the middle. That's the seven awakening factors, and the center is Nibbana. Yeah, the hub of the wheel. Yeah, so actually, a friend and I, we drew it on a beach. Well, I kind of drew it and he made it, which is very, very nice of him. Yeah, but you're actually you're practicing mindfulness of breathing to have those, to cultivate those seven awakening factors and just developing insight into the hindrances on the way in a way that weakens them. Because you want those conditions, yeah? You want that sada verified by your own experience, yeah? Really strong in your heart. It overcomes doubt. It removes doubt. If doubt's there, then your sada, your faith, your confidence in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, your faith and confidence that's being developed by insight is not strong enough yet. If it's strong, there is no room for doubt. Once a meditator has reached Sotapanna, there can't be doubt. It just doesn't come up. It's just the conditions just don't exist anymore. Yeah. Every time the mind sees reality, it just reaffirms what it saw. It can't go backwards. Yeah. And then you have the other condition, the seven awakening factors, all seven present. Yeah. And another condition, deep perception into anicca and anatta. So your mind sees everything in terms of anicca and anatta. Yeah. And then a good understanding or deep insight into iddhipacciyata, specific conditionality. You literally get into that equanimous in equanimity with the seven awakening factors and seeing everything coming and going in a very refined watching by itself. There's nothing you need to do. It's just all happening, coming and going by itself. Yeah. So you see the conditionality in that. You see it's just arising and ceasing due to conditions, and the heart just bubbles. I'm looking for it, guys. I'm looking for that faith. I'm looking for that sort of bubbling out of your heart. I'm looking for that joy. That joy. That's one of the conditions for Sotapanna stream entry. We see it. Yeah. Yeah. It becomes permanent. That joy, that happiness, that confidence, that faith, that kusala state stays. Dharma talks are just so interesting. Yeah. Very interesting, man. Yeah. Even if it's not a very good one. Yeah. So I'm looking for Sotapannas because they're the ones that are actually enjoying my talk. Yeah. So that's what you're doing. So don't lose sight of that, Paula, what the bigger goal is. The bigger goal. Don't get lost in the sticks and the leaves and the flowers along the track. We've got a goal here. We're not striving towards it, we're creating the conditions for it. But part of that is weakening the hindrances. With equanimity, there's no hindrances. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. And so we're using jhana to boost that. We're boosting it through jhana. That's what we're doing so it carries over. So the mind recognizes equanimity, can enter it. We can also develop that equanimity through Kanika Samadhi, yeah, through Vipassana insight. But it's a lot more difficult to do. You have to do very methodical, clear, without a break noting to do it. It can be done in retreat, very, very hard in daily life to get that sort of depth. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.